following program is based upon excerpts from the new book, Historic Hallowell, compiled by Katherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux.
And brought to you by the Hollowell Loan and Building Association at 144 Water Street in Hollowell as a public service feature. This is Hollowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hallowell is a composite of many stories of ships, people, granite, homes, industry, and history. Today we'll go back into history to the Kennebec River. Gone, never to return, are the sailing packets which brought general merchandise to the shopkeepers of Hollowell. Gone are the three-masted schooners loaded with coal and departed with timber, granite, and ice. Gone are the passenger and freight steamers. All gone are the excursion steamers on hot summer's day bound for Booth Bay in the island. Here she comes. Here comes the Islander. Shh, now please be quiet. Don't talk so loud. I know it's coming. Percy, do you think the lunch basket will keep until we get to the harbor?
Oh, she is a beauty, huh?
Who's a beauty?
Well, the fastest thing in the Kennebec. My, how I've been looking forward to this Sunday, Nora.
I do hope little Forrest will stay back from the railings. Where is that boy?
They say they've got linoleum on the main cabin floor. A Wilton carpet for you ladies in the cabin.
How'd you know that, Percy?
Well, that's what they said.
But I wonder, is it safe?
For pity's sakes, Nora. Nellie could up and run away with you, but not the Islander.
Yes, all very true, but Nellie is a horse.
Ah, here she comes. This is going to be the best Sunday ever.
Those were the sentiments of the turn of a century. However, it might be interesting to note that the first line of passenger packets to run between Hollowell and Boston started in about 1831. The cost of the trip was $1. There were many ships to follow. One of these ships was called the Huntress. She was a side-wheeler. She became famous when she made a special trip carrying President James K. Polk and his Secretary of State, James Buchanan, later President himself. Some of the other well-known ships were to make their debut on the Kennebec River with such names as Star of the East, the T.F. Secour, the famed Della Collins, the S.S. City of Augusta, the S.S. Richmond, just to name a few of the well-known beauties of the Kennebec. Today, only the three-blast signal from the whistle of an occasional oil tanker saluting the children along Lower Water Street is all that is left to remind people of the Hollowell and glorious days when the mighty Kennebec was an important factor in the growth and development of Hollowell and the Kennebec Valley.
No more will the waters of the upper Kennebec be graced by the hulls of vessels carrying their cargoes in and out of Hollowell. It will be then that the heart-aching tragedy of this so-called progress will finally have its triumph over a once mighty but still proud river. The Kennebec will have done its work, and will have done it well. Her past is a great past, and she lies waiting, hoping for a new role in Hollowell's history.
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial celebration, July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and inviting you to listen to more facts and stories of Hollowell over this station. Presented at this time as a public service by the Hollowell Loan and Building Association, 144 Water Street in Hollowell.
The following program is based upon excerpts from the new book, Historic Hallowell, compiled by Katherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux.
And brought to you by Murphy Memorials at 52 Water Street in Hollowell as a public service feature. This is Hollowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hollowell is a composite of many stories, of ships, people, granite, homes, industry, and history. Today we'll go back into history to the story of granite. Granite was first quarried in Hollowell as early as 1815. This stone was used for foundation, millstones, and doorsteps. Then the demand became greater. It is interesting to note that pieces of granite were quarried at this time without the use of blasting powder. The stone was split off with rising wedges. The first instance of blasting powder being used is when the State House was built in 1829. As the workmen became more familiar with the blasting powder, more elaborate methods of getting stone were developed, and the quarryman became a highly skilled workman.
Then it happened. The boom was on. Hollowell was making a name for itself, with granite being shipped to far points of Texas, Ohio, Illinois, Washington, D.C. Hundreds of statues, columns, monuments were sent from Hollowell. Carved pieces were worth $100 a square foot. Hollowell's payroll was greater than any city in Maine. These were the happy days.
Fred, what's this I hear about the cement business starting on foundations?
Won't bother us, Bess. We've still got a lot of work to do with that state capitol.
But it did bother. As the granite business took a gradual decline from 1910 to 1930, the derricks became quiet. The pavers and cutters rested or sought new locales. The granite business was over.
We do have reminders of other days. The granite which built our beautiful capital, the granite which adorns many resting places for our former citizens. The quarries are silent, water fills their graves. The men who work these quarries are still a part of the passing scene. Another time, another bygone industry.
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and inviting you to listen again to more facts and stories on Hollowell over this station. Presented at this time as a public service by Murphy Memorials at 52 Water Street in Hollowell.
The following program is based upon excerpts from the new book, Historic Hallowell, compiled by Katherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux.
And brought to you as a public service feature by the Lade Fuel Company of Hollowell, distributors of custom blended Sunoco gasoline. This is Hollowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hallowell is a composite of many stories, of ships, people, granite, homes, industry, and history. Today we'll go back into history and the important role Hollowell played in sending men to the Civil War. The residents of Hollowell joined many regiments, foot, horse, and guns. until scarce a Maine regiment was not represented by one man in Hallowell. It might be well to establish the knowledge that Hallowell contributed Company E to the 3rd Maine.
Never did the town fail to meet the standards set it by nation and state, the demands of draft, bounty, assistance, or soldiers' families for simple hospitality. Every level of society met the challenge. Of the sons of Governor John Hubbard, Captain John was killed at Port Hudson only days before his intended marriage.
The volunteers are pouring in to join the fight for freedom, to swell the ranks of Union blue, and nothing now can beat 'em. One nation and one flag we say, whomever war may slaughter.
We're going down to Charleston town to fight for Abraham's daughter.
Oh, should you ask me who she is, Columbia is her name, sir. She is the child of Abraham, of Uncle Sam the same, sir. And I belong to the infantry, and don't you think I oughter?
We're going down to Vicksburg town to fight for Abraham's daughter.
They say we have no officers, but they are mistaken. And soon you'll see the rebels run with all the fuss they're making. McClellan is the man we mean, he'll show the foe no quarter.
He's going down to Richmond town to fight for Abraham's daughter. He's going
The
down
men
to
who
Richmond
served
town
always
to
knew
fight
that they had
for
taken
Abraham's
part in a
daughter.
great upswelling of patriotism. They knew that they had devoted themselves to a great cause, and because neighbors served together, they knew who had failed and those who successfully met the challenge. This ordeal marked the Civil War veteran in many ways. It was a great price to pay, but the Civil War brought the United States to maturity, and the city of Hallowell did its full share in shedding adolescence.
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and inviting you to listen to more facts and stories on Hallowell over this station, and presented at this time by the Lade Fuel Company of Hallowell, distributors of custom-blended Sunoco gasoline.
The following program is based upon excerpts from the new book, Historic Hallowell, compiled by Catherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux.
And brought to you at this time as a public service feature of the Rideout Oil Company on Riverside Drive in Augusta. This is Hallowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hallowell is a composite of many stories, of ships, people, granite, homes, industry, and history. Today we'll go back into history in the days of shipbuilding. Hallowell had in the early days the prosperity of the shipbuilding business. And these vessels, constructed and owned by Hallowell people, sailed to the far corners of the earth, bringing great profits to their owners. The three major shipbuilders of Hallowell at this time were Isaac Pillsbury, Captain Isaac Smith, and Ebenezer Mayo. From 1800 to 1810, Hallowell was second only to Bath in total launchings with 38. Then it was the era of the clipper ship. Hallowell was not without the honor of building one of these. She was a clipper Dashaway, launched in 1854. From the yard of Rideout, this fine vessel gave a good account of herself and made her mark on among the clippers of all the United States.
Heave him by the leg in a rumbling bowling, heave him by the leg in a rumbling bowling, heave him by the leg in a rumbling bowling, early in the morning. Yo-ho, and up she rises, yo-ho, and up she rises, yo-ho, and up she rises, early in the morning.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning. Yo-ho, and up she rises, yo-ho, and up she rises, yo-ho, and up she rises.
About the height of shipbuilding came this story, as sworn to Ariel Mann, Justice of the Peace, Kennebec County.
I, Shubal West of Hallowell, testify to seeing a sea serpent of a Sunday, the 21st, 6 p.m., in the year of our Lord, 1818. The serpent was engaged in striking a whale. The whale went down. The serpent came into full view. The serpent's body was larger than any ship I saw. His tail was rough and ragged. His head like a land serpent. Signed, Shubal West.
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and inviting you to listen again for more facts and stories in Hallowell, presented at this time as a public service by the Rideout Oil Company on Riverside Drive in Augusta.
The following program is based upon excerpts from the new book, Historic Hallowell, compiled by Catherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux.
And brought to you today as a public service feature of Co Chevrolet at 340 State Street in Augusta. This is Hallowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hallowell is a composite of many stories, of ships, people, granite, homes, industry, and history. Today, we'll go back to the electric car line, or the trolley car. The Augusta, Hallowell, and Gardner Railroad, an electric railway, was built in 1890. This marvel of transportation lived a happy life until July the 31st, 1932. As we would take our cars to different points of interest, the folks of yesterday boarded the trolley. Can you envision the teenager of yesterday using the trolley as their means of transportation?
I promised Mother I'd be home at 8 o'clock,
There's just 5 minutes to go. You know Mother.
Gosh, Francis, I have 3 more nickels to spend. Let's ride to Gardner again, huh?
Herbert, you know very well I'll not be able to see you if I don't get off in Hollowell.
Hollowell!
Don't be mad, Herbert. I've just got to go.
Okay, I know someone who will appreciate my nickels.
The forerunner of the majority of streetcar lines was the horse-drawn car, but these were never used on the Augusta, Hallowell, and Gardner Railroad. The Augusta, Gardner, and Hallowell was succeeded by the Augusta, Winthrop, and Gardner Railway, with a line running from Western Avenue to Island Park, Baileyville, and Maranacook. A branch also extended to Togus, where an amusement park operated near the Old Soldiers' Home.
One can hardly visualize well-laid rails on the streets of Hollowell today. What with the high-power automobiles going over the same streets, it's quite a change. But the trolley of the colorful past is a happy one. Do you remember?
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and inviting you to listen again to more facts and stories on Hallowell over this station. Presented at this time by Co Chevrolet at 340 State Street in Augusta.
The following program is based upon excerpts from the new book, Historic Hallowell, compiled by Catherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux.
And brought to you as a public service feature by Diplocks of Hallowell. This is Hallowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hallowell is a composite of many stories, of ships, people, granite, homes, industry, and history. Today we go back into history in the Hallowell Fire Department. At a meeting of the fire wards of the town of Hallowell, December the 10th, 1835, the Hallowell Fire Department for 1835 was organized. The first equipment were bucket tubs and required the help of the bucket brigade. Both men and women would form lines, and each householder reserved 2 buckets hanging about his house. The early history of the fire department showed that there were 3 bucket machines, 3 hand machines, 1 chemical, and 1 steamer. In 1924, the horses were retired and the engines were drawn by trucks. Later, in 1928, the department became independently motorized.
Hallowell has always been very proud of its fire department, but it should be remembered, in the year of 1863, Hallowell was almost wiped off the map. It was late afternoon on July 3rd that this story took place.
Mother, you know Father seems so pleased to go to that excursion with the rest of the firemen. It'll be good for the men folks. They need to get away from the women folks sometime. Father's never been on the Star of the East, has he? Wouldn't know when he'd be going again either. Oh, it's going to be a good day, too.
Mrs. Robinson! Mrs. Robinson! Mrs. Robinson, fire has broken out down street. Is Mr. Robinson there?
No, he ain't. Mildred, get the horse harness. We've got a fire to put out.
So it was that a group of women with a few stray men dragged the Tiger Engine to the wharf. One hotel had already been leveled. These women bravely saved the rest of the town. Needless to say, the women were highly complimented upon their work. Some were just schoolgirls, but they helped save the town of Hollowell.
It might be interesting to note that the Cascade Engine, belonging to the Vaughn family, is believed to be the oldest fire engine in the United States. It was made in Philadelphia in 1819 for the late Dr. William Vaughn. Thus, with history and the proudness of the past, the pioneer fire department of the present, Hollowell can be proud of their fire department's history.
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine H, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and inviting you to listen in again to more facts and stories on Hollowell, presented over station WFAU. Presented at this time as a public service feature by Diplocks of Hollowell.
The following program is based upon excerpts from the new book, Historic Hallowell, compiled by Catherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux.
And brought to you at this time as a public service feature by the Depositors Trust Company with branch office in Hollowell and throughout central Maine. This is Hollowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine H, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hollowell is a composite of many stories of ships, people, granite, homes, industry, and of history. Today, a bridge is remembered, the Hollowell Bridge. In 1857, after a financial panic, the citizens of Hollowell were anxious to have their return to prosperity. They decided a bridge would be to their advantage, because at this period Togus was making a name for itself as a summer resort, and folks were coming there to take advantage of the spring. Thus, a bridge would be to their advantage between Hollowell and Chelsea. The year was 1859. The piers, 7 in number, were completed.
The bridge was constructed with lumber known as hackmatack, surrounded by granite blocks and firmly laid to a height of 16 feet. The timbers were dovetailed and bolted together from the bottom of the river. The bridge was destined for a short life, for on Sunday, October 3rd, 1869, it began to rain, and it continued for 3 days.
That you, son? I thought you'd never get home. Oh, the rain has come right through that roof.
That's all right, Graham. I'll patch it.
Your wife and children went over to Chelsea. I told them not to go, but they knew best, you know.
Well, you know Aunt Mert. She wants to see the children.
But I wonder why they had to go in all this rain. They never listened to me. They always know what's best.
Now, Graham, you stop getting upset. I'll fix the roof for you.
They never listened to me. They never listened to me. Perhaps the folks in that family should have listened to Graham, because the bridge from Hollowell to Chelsea went out on that day, and the folks had to detour clear to Augusta and back to Hollowell. A flood on February the 20th, 1870, resulted in the extremely heavy ice flow which lifted the remaining part of the structure and literally carried down the river on top of the ice. note to this sad story is that a lot of wooded structure was salvaged and used in the foundation and framing of a house, which was built in the site of the new occupied Malcolm Cadillac Olds Company.
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and inviting you to listen in again to more facts and stories of Hallowell, presented over station WFAU, and presented today as a public service feature by the Depositors Trust Company, with branch office in Hallowell and throughout central Maine.
The following program is based upon excerpts from the new book, Historic Hallowell, compiled by Catherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux,
And brought to you as a public service feature by the Builders Supply Company of Hallowell. This is Hallowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hallowell is a composite of many stories of ships, people, granite, homes, industry, and history. Today we go back to the logging days. The Hallowell Steam and Boom Company was established in March of the year 1836. The state allocated the use of the river between the Ferryway and Hussey's Landing. This operation continued for 90 years. The log driving companies ran all the Kennebec logs from the rivers and streams of Moosehead Lake, where all the logs of the mill owners were assembled, ready to be rushed down the river to the many sorting booms. And the great sorting boom for downriver mills was in Hallowell.
At the height of this operation, between 300 and 400 men would be working at the boom. These men who worked in the boom were a different breed from the log drivers who brought logs to them. They were known as the pickers, sorters, and raftsmen. They lived on the river. Later in the fall, they would be towed to a cove below Vaughn's Point. Drift logs were a boon to dwellers along the riverbanks, who got a fixed price from the owners according to distance below Hallowell at which they were caught. These prices were paid by marked logs, but it was finders keepers for scallywags or unmarked logs when caught by the squatters with pick-pole and ropes in flat-bottomed skiffs.
During these times, it was not unusual for these men of the river and wood to join in the song of their trade. Perhaps such a folk tune such as the Shanty Boys is sung by Sandy Ives served to while away the hours of leisure and of play.
Come all you good jolly fellas, come listen to my song. It's all about the Shanty Boys and how they get along. We're all the jolly fellas as you will ever find, to wear away the winter months a-whaling down the pine. The chopper and the sawyer, they lay the timber low. The swamper and the teamster, they haul it to and fro. You'd ought to hear our foreman soon after the break of day. Load up your team 2,000 feet to the river, you'll steer away. Crack, snap goes my whip, I whistle and I sing. I sit upon my timber load as happy as a king. My horses, they are ready, and I am never sad. There's no one now so happy as the jolly shanty lad.
The logging days have come to a close, but there are still pictures, memories, and tales and songs of the loggers who came to Hallowell many a year ago.
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and inviting you to listen in again to more facts and stories on Hallowell, presented over station WFAU, and presented today as a public service feature by the Builders Supply Company of Hallowell.
following program is based upon excerpts from the new book, Historic Hallowell, compiled by Catherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux.
And brought to you as a public service feature by the F.S. Wingate Company of Hollowell. This is Hollowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hollowell is a composite of many stories of ships, people, granite, homes, industry, and history. Today, we'll go back reviewing some of the history of the Hollowell homes. A passing tourist once said, "Hollowell has a wealth of beautiful homes, which are a reminder of the past, gracious living, pride, and of dignity." These homes with our new generations have had their faces lifted. They've become alive again, ringing with new paint, chimneys, heating systems, and interest of the past. One must give credit to the Hollowell residents who have restored these lovely shrines, who have appreciated the need to have owners once again take up the glories in living in today's world, but also remembering those who wished these homes to keep the pride of Hollowell.
Many of these beautiful homes are New England post-colonial, some with Georgian influence, and many with the Greek designs, such as the side doors, pilasters, pillars, pediments on the door. The entrances and walks with large, beautifully milled pieces of granite are present because of the quarry influence. The roofs adorned with huge chimneys for the many fireplaces which they serve. The catwalks, the stained windows, winding staircases, high ceilings, wide planked floors are all from the past. In the book Historic Hallowell are just a few of the beautiful homes which represent Hollowell. Some of these homes will be opened for Hollowell's Bicentennial to welcome you in.
Because a large majority of these homes were owned once by sea captains, and they were out to sea, but would remember their anchor point, their home in Hollowell. The population of Hollowell has had its cycles. Industries have come and gone, but the old homes remain. They stand through the shadows and sunshines of time, with a reminder of the past, and within their walls a new generation, restoring, recreating another page to history.
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th, and inviting you to listen to more facts and stories of Hollowell on station WFAU, presented at this time by the F.S. Wingate Company of Hollowell as a public service feature.
The following program is based upon excerpts from the new book Historic Hallowell, compiled by Catherine Snell and Major Vincent Ledoux.
And presented as a public service feature by Boynton's Red and White Store in Hollowell. This is Hollowell, and this is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice, reminding you of Hollowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Hallowell is steeped in history. It has been brewed with the courage and determination of its ancestors. A sturdy stock of settlers who had vision and hope. They built homes and ships. They had faith. They built churches, which are still cherished today.
With that faith, They realized the need for industry. Thus came to Hallowell the cutting of granite, logging, shipbuilding, oilcloth, sandpaper, shoes, pharmaceutical products, even candy making. Schools were being built to meet the needs of education. Hallowell was growing. With the advent of the locomotive came more people to Hallowell. The passenger boats were slowly losing trade. This new form of transportation meant quicker service and luxury. The railroad had come.
Hallowell contributed political leaders, writers, and prominent citizens. The city was in the 19th century the hub of activity. Years of building and planning. 1962, we see a different Hallowell. Now we see restoration of old homes. We see still that same courage and hope of the younger generation to make Hallowell a city for their children's children to be proud. Many folks would wish to recreate another Williamsburg of the North. They, with their interest of history, would instill to residents and the visitor the beauty and marvel of how this city grew. Times will change, but in the hearts of men there is a deep respect for history, pride, and dignity which Hallowell deserves on her 200th anniversary.
This is Norm Gallant with Katherine Rice reminding you of Hallowell's Bicentennial, July 27th, 28th, and 29th. This is Hallowell has been presented today as a public service feature by Boynton's Red and White Store in Hallowell.